Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel.
Hi everyone, it's me, Rocky. Just a quick disclaimer about this next video. This is not a score settling video by any way, shape or form. I'm not going to be naming the company in question. What people think about them is well documented online, and I think Monique said it best when she said,
"See, when you do clownery, the clown comes back to bite."
So this is more of a general video talking about the toxic work environment and what you should do to combat it. So I hope you enjoy it, and don't forget to like and subscribe at the end of the video. Enjoy, guys.
Today I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different. So I'm going to talk about workplaces and work environments and how to know whether your work environment is toxic or not. So recently I have moved out of a role, and before I was kind of, shuffled out, I'd noticed a few red flags in the company with the way people dealt with each other, with the way people dealt with things, with the way processes worked or didn't work. And I'm just here to kind of give you guys an understanding of what is a toxic work environment, how to avoid them, and if you find yourself in one, what you should do about it. So basically, a little bit of background here. I moved to Spain in June last year. I've been working remote for almost a year. So I thought, okay, with that, I've got this job already. I can work anywhere in the world. And for various reasons, I decided I'm going to move to Madrid. And maybe a week or two afterwards, I get a message from my previous employer saying that basically because they had some issues with their marketing clients, they don't have as many as they had, so they can't offer me any work to do. And I just, started applying for everything I thought I was eligible for. So at the same time, I'm trying to write my dissertation. And I'm also trying to find a job because I need to live. A lot of personal stuff also happening at the same time. And so there was a lot of things going around in my head. After sending out a lot of applications, I get an interview for a company that is the role is in line with the sort of thing I've done before. So it was like a social media sort of role. And I've worked in marketing and online journalism, and there have been parts of that have involved social media, and I'm quite active on social media, like in my own time. So for me, it was something that I thought, I'd be able to work with. And the interview went well. There weren't really any major red flags. I think maybe one of the people was dressed a bit too casually than how I'd expect. But they did actually say to me, no, our dress code is smart casual, more to the side of casual. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. Someone's wearing shorts in the interview. Okay. They offered me the role, and a few weeks later, I started working there. So everything seemed kind of fine.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
And I guess when I started noticing that there were kind of issues, I would say maybe a few weeks in, there were a lot of things that weren't maybe where they could have been professionally. That includes processes, that includes human resources stuff, that includes communication, and it also includes, which is part of communication, knowing who does what, like who's in charge of who. And looking back, maybe there was a bit of a red flag, because in my interview they said, oh, we don't really have a hierarchy here, like, oh, it's quite a horizontal management structure. And first of all, that's not really true. That's never truly true. And the reason why it's a bit of a red flag is that it means that there are too many cooks. So especially if you're new, which I was, there are a lot of people who maybe have an interest in what you're doing, but they aren't your direct boss, but they think they can tell you to do certain things, or, advise you to do certain things when they don't know exactly what they're talking about, which is a problem for me, and I guess most people. So I had my actual boss. And then I had someone who was kind of at a similar level to my actual boss, but was a slightly different department. And then I had someone who was in my department, but was a different sub-department. And she was older than me, but then was asking me to do things on social media that indicated that she didn't know how social media really worked. So there was a lot of people who were uninformed, but were taking the opportunity to try and tell me certain things. Yeah.
You in danger, girl.
So that's kind of one aspect of it. Another aspect of the workplace toxicity, which you should look out for, is high turnover. In my particular role, I'm the second person there in less than a year. There was someone who started not too long after I started. They left pretty quickly, and they haven't been replaced, or the last I heard of it, they haven't been replaced. I'm no longer working in the role that I was hired for. I'm not working at that company anymore, and I fully believe that I won't be replaced because it's kind of, this is another thing as well, cost cutting, extreme cost cutting measures, or cutting corners. So when a company doesn't really want to pay for something that is worth their while, like let's say a premium version of like a scheduling app or something like that, it should kind of set off red flags, because it means they're going to try and save money in other ways. So if people leave, they won't necessarily replace them. They'll just try and kind of cobble together their role, give it to other people, and say, okay, you've got a higher workload now. We're going to pay you the same amount, but we're expecting you to pick up the slack for this other person. And in fact, that's what happened to me when someone left. And yeah, they use the phrase, we're not going to hire someone right now, but we all know that really means we're not going to hire someone. So you better buck your ideas up. This was early on in the role, and that was a bit of a kind of red flag for me. But what could I do? I'm living in Spain, I'm living in Madrid. There aren't so many jobs that I can do as an English speaker. There's a lot of competition for kind of content sort of roles for people that can speak English, but they also kind of assume a really good level of Spanish, which I don't have yet. So I didn't really have too many options at that point. So I was like, okay, well, this is a bit annoying, but I'll carry on with this role. And the main kind of toxicity part of it is definitely the too many cooks and the kind of underhandedness. And in a company like this, there can be a lot of kind of misunderstandings. There's a lot of cliquiness. I would say definitely read Glassdoor before you apply for somewhere, because I didn't. And once I was in the role and I was reading some of the reviews of the company, there were things that were set off a few alarm bells. I just kind of brushed it off. Workaholism, I want to say as well, because if you know me, you know that I'm someone who, and I know this is a very cliched phrase, I like to work smart. I mean, I do work hard as well, but I can't come and die, in a role. Once the clock hits a certain time, I've done my allotted hours, I'm not going to come and die, and do extra hours I'm not going to get paid for what, basically. So there were certain people, I want to say certain superiors of mine, who basically didn't know about work-life balance. So I'm going to touch on this in another video, but a major reason I moved to Spain was for a cultural change, especially in the way people work. The kind of workaholic culture isn't necessarily as embedded here as it is in let's say the UK and the US especially. That kind of Anglo-Saxon work ethic of linking working hard to kind of morality, and if you're not shown to be working hard, it's kind of a sign of laziness, kind of the performativeness of hard work rather than actually doing work. So there were a lot of people there that would kind of make a big song and dance about, oh, I'm ill and I'm so sick, but I'm still coming to work. And it's you're putting everyone at risk, go home. As I've said, I'm not someone who's going to come and kill myself for a role. I'm going to do my best and I'm going to work really hard. And even when I feel like I'm coasting, it's still 30% more than it would be. But I think there are a lot of people in this role, which I was surprised about. But you have to understand that the culture of the department I was working in, it was kind of British cultural, which I didn't move here for that. And some of the effects of that were the kind of underhandedness, the bitchiness, and also the workaholic nature of people. Because we had kind of flexible hours. I was the first one in there, but I was also maybe the first or second to leave, because I've done my 8 or so hours for the day. Get in early because I'm a bit of a morning person, I can't help it, and then kind of I leave at let's say 4:30, and then I still have the rest of my afternoon to enjoy, my evening, but I've done a really good job in that allotted time. And I've never really been one to kind of perform hard work. If you're in a company that cares more about the appearance of working hard than actual good outcomes, that is a major red flag. To kind of wrap this up a little bit, there's a lot of emphasis on who you know and who you're in with rather than how good your actual job is. I'm not really a cliquey kind of person. In that sort of big company environment, there were a lot of cliques. So the main problem was really kind of if you kind of go against the wrong people or voice an opinion that certain people might not agree with, even if it's your own best judgment and it's so you can do your own job well, it's not always welcome. And yeah, I'm not trying to be all like self-righteous or anything, but I had to speak out and say, I don't think this is a correct practice. It's hindering the way I do my role and the things that I know to be kind of correct and effective. So I was just trying to see, is there a way that we can kind of compromise? And in the end, there wasn't a way that we could compromise. So, I mean, I was willing to, the other parties weren't. And in the end, you know, this job, I'm no longer in this job, not because of my own work, but because certain people who didn't like that I was questioning certain things. And when there's a company where it's less about how good you are at the role and more about who you're in with and who you kind of maneuver with, then that is definitely like a sign of workplace toxicity. Like there are a lot of other kind of things. I don't want to go into too many specifics about this particular company, but so the main things we have, if there's high turnover, there's a workaholic culture, it's cliquey, and if they're kind of obsessed with money-saving measures, I'd say those are the four main red flags and indications of a toxic work environment. And in terms of how you can deal with that, be on your toes, know who to trust, know the real chain of command. If they tell you it's horizontal, it's not true. And find out who's responsible for what and who you can go to about certain things. And just keep your head up. The thing is, it's like, I can't even say, you know, your work will speak for itself, because it does. But that isn't everything that the role is about. So I would say, short of leaving the role or being, you know, asked to leave the role, as I was, you just kind of have to maybe swallow a bit of pride and realize that, you know, future employers know what companies are like. So if there's something that you've done that you don't think is to your own standards necessarily, another company is going to understand, because they know that companies have processes and they have hierarchies and they have rules that you can follow and rules that you're supposed to follow and things that you can and can't do. So don't be too bogged down in the fact that, oh, you know, this is like making me look bad, it's making my work look bad. Because as long as you do your best within the parameters that you're given, then your future role will understand. There's leeway there, and I think maybe I didn't get the percentages quite right. So I was maybe too focused on how it's going to look on me rather than on how to kind of work more effectively with people that I didn't agree with and I didn't agree with their methods with, and trying to find a middle ground, which I did try to do, but evidently, you know, they didn't like what I was saying or the implications of what I was saying. I guess it brought into question the whole kind of visual strategy of the company. And when you're like a relatively new person and you're coming in and challenging established norms, you're gonna get marked out. Like, no matter how good your job is, you're gonna get marked out as, this guy's a troublemaker. It's maybe not worth the hassle of him staying here. But that's my advice about how to deal with a toxic workplace and what the red flags are, and a tiny bit of story time about what happened with me. I'm going to be doing more videos here. I'm Rocky TYT. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and yeah, stay tuned, and hope to see you soon. Ciao.